Well, have you jumped on the AI bandwagon yet? Or do you think it's a bunch of malarkey? The goal of this video is to outline some of the key things an established entrepreneur should be thinking about in the world of AI to decide if it's a good fit for them to be using it or if it's a distraction that's actually getting in the way. I've waited a long time to make this video because it's been an ever-changing landscape, and I'm just starting to feel like some of the pieces are settling in place enough where I can speak a little bit on it and just kind of begin to outline things. So let's dive right on in here. So before we go too far, let's talk about where technology fits in an entrepreneur's existence right now. So if you are a brand new business owner just starting up or even pre-launch, going into the most cutting edge of technology can be very interesting. If you are an established business, though, being on the dull edge has its benefits. So I'll talk a bit more about this concept and unpack exactly what I mean here. So if you have a business that you have not started yet, then incorporating AI or making an AI focused business can be a unique, cutting edge, frontier type thing to do where you can launch very quickly in a new space with lots of excitement. But if you're an existing, ongoing business with employees, built in customers, and systems, trying to be on that same cutting edge is a distraction from your daily operations and what's gotten you to where it's gotten you already. And if you are always chasing the cutting edge of new technology as it comes out as an established business, you'll end up betting on some things that are, I'll say, losers that don't pan out. I'm not saying whether AI is or is not this, but at this time, it's important to recognize that every cutting edge thing isn't a good fit for you. It's better to be on the dull edge of business when you have an established business. Wait till something is a bit proven out and has shown some longevity before you dive on it, because then you're not in that same risk pool and you get only the benefits as the problems are fleshed out. You can look back at, blockchain was on this sort of cutting edge piece of things, chatbots earlier on, social media marketing, SEO, sort of these different trends happen in such a way that they seem to explode, and you feel this need and this pull to be on the cutting edge. But really, at the end of the day, when the dust settles, there isn't always benefit to being there. Sometimes there is not. So if you're, again, an unestablished business, being on the cutting edge is great. If you're an established business, I would recommend not letting this distract you from the day-to-day things you already know you should be working on. Your to-do list is already a million pages long, so driving in and learning a whole new system or area would be taking you away from that. And the longer you wait, the more guidance, the more it's fleshed out. I mean, basically all of the AI has been having iterations of improvement over time. So the longer you wait, the better the product is when you do finally get into it. So just a general piece of guidance and thinking about things, depending on the stage of business, there's higher or lower benefits. Let's talk about some of the key uses of AI in business right now to kind of, again, outline this framework and how I think about these things in a way that affects an everyday entrepreneur. So one of the common uses of AI currently is for marketing. And so we'll break this down into search marketing and content marketing. Search marketing is one of the reasons I made this video right now. So it used to be that entrepreneurs would get tons of SEO emails saying, hey, we'll get you to the page one of Google, hire us and pay us lots of money. And in the early days of that, the entrepreneur had the idea that these SEO firms had this magic wand light switch they just flipped on. Now my SEO is on, and tons of people are going to call me and reach out to me. And they'd hired and paid these firms lots of money, and then there weren't a lot of results over time. And now it's gotten to the point where many entrepreneurs would get dozens of emails a week or even a day from different SEO people making different promises. They just delete and remove them. On this new frontier right now is this idea of AI search marketing. And the pitch goes something like this. It's really hard to be found in Google. Therefore, people are using AI to search now for new things, and you should be listed there instead. So if you can't be on the top 5 search of Google, you should do things to trick people into having ChatGPT show them your result instead. And there are all sorts of hacks and ideas about this space. And essentially, it's again shown as a magic wand switch to avoid the common areas of SEO, which is deemed to be hard to get results. And therefore, here's a different workaround hack to make it easier. So I am making this video partially to help people not fall into this pit or this trap so much. So most people that are selling this service aren't doing it out of a malicious negative aspect, But one of the things to remember is that ChatGPT, for example, or other AI agents, they don't have the entirety of the internet built into them. They're making a call to the internet, much like if you hired an office administrative assistant and said, hey, research this topic for me, that person might go to Google or another browser, type in a search, and pull back a result. That's how these agents are working. So there isn't really a hack to make that agent find you differently because it's basically going to Google or whatever web search already and pulling results back. Now, the big difference is if you have an established conversation, maybe it's having more of what we call a longer tail search. Maybe it knows that you have 2 kids, this type of business, you like these types of foods, eat at this restaurant. So it's a longer tail versus just restaurant near me, but you could have typed that same thing in Google and had the same result. So before you start trying to do a lot of spam posts on LinkedIn or on Reddit with the idea that's going to somehow boost your AI presence, the actual core principles are the same as SEO, meaning content that's helpful for a user that answers real questions clearly is going to typically do the best. If you have poor SEO presence, you'll have poor artificial intelligence presence. The big thing is that it's unclear exactly how AI works in that realm a lot of ways, so it's easier to kind of mask that if someone is selling that service to you. So I would say, as of right now, if you're thinking, oh, I should be paying a marketing firm a lot of money so I can rank higher on AI, that would be much better spent energy focusing on your general web presence, because if you don't show up in the web presence, you won't show up any better in an AI presence. That's one part of marketing. The second part of marketing with AI is that you can actually pump out content much more quickly with AI right now. I've seen people use it for blog posts, for creating images, for social media sharing and content. That's a wide array of ways is to use this. Now, one of the considerations here is creating content shouldn't be just checking a box that, okay, I did my content today, I shared something. It matters that it actually has an impact. Did a user actually look at this, enjoy it, and respond and have a reaction? Or was it instantly identifiable as some sort of AI slop that was put together that had no impact? If you're doing the second, you're probably actually having a negative influence on your customers. You're starting to show them that you are cutting corners, that you're not in tune and focused. You're just checking the box. It'd be better probably to do less posts or less blogs that were actually human generated with some attention or AI started and finished by human than to push a lot of stuff out just because you can. So that's a key idea, is to not use these tools just because we can, but because they actually have an impact. And it used to be some rules of general internet presence included a level of frequency, a level of presence, had a level of impact to show that you were an active person. You might show up better in rankings. But it's actually started to become pretty evident that the big players are penalizing that. I think this last week I saw news that YouTube pulled 100,000 plus videos, Spotify pulled hundreds of thousands of songs. Google's been penalizing people who are doing sort of blog content. Scaled content is one thing that's called, where you maybe scrape a competitor's website, create similar blog posts on your own site. They can see that you've done that and actually penalize your page for that. So actually doing some of these things can be worse than doing nothing at all at times. And it's a slippery slope. So just because you can doesn't mean you should on the content marketing side of things. So now on the more positive side of AI, automations. This to me is the number one thing entrepreneurs should be evaluating as there's a reason or a need to do this. And I think that AI is used across a wide variety of topics, meaning a lot of things, but the automation part of AI has been around for a long time. It's really not so much thinking for itself as the ability to connect application A with application B, have them pass over a certain amount of data and take an action for you. So way back when Tim Ferriss wrote The 4-Hour Workweek, he talked about if this then that, which is an application at the time. Zapier is a popular one I've been using for over a decade. There are lots of different ways to set up automations. And as a business owner, it's not uncommon that you have a number of tools across different ecosystems that you need to have talk together. And automation can help streamline that process. So you don't have to type information repeatedly or take extra steps. It can kind of streamline things through. AI can be very good for that when the input data is known and the output data is known. So the automation side of things of AI is, I would say, on the duller edge of technology. Now, it's quite proven that that can be very, very effective. If we move on to the next part of AI, initial research is another really good use for AI. So if you're just beginning to learn about a topic, let's say that you don't know much about sales yet as a business owner, and you're like, what are some key concepts in sales? It can give you some information. You can have a chat with it to ask some more and get a big picture idea of what that looks like. The important part here, I said initial research. The thing is that it is likely it will feed you some incorrect information. And it doesn't matter if you're doing initial research, because now you can go deeper on any topic using non-AI methods. You can find books or more established human curated content that's less likely to have errors. But if you're taking whatever it says as the end truth, then those issues that can pop up where it's inaccurate or not nuanced to your exact situation can create problems. But the initial research, getting the big idea of what does the field look like, where are the landmarks, where are the goalposts, it's really, really useful for that as you're trying to enter a market, saying, what are some of the things I should know about opening X type of business. It can give you some beginning starting places where you can dive in and do deeper research. So carrying on to the last point is expert advice and critical thinking is not a good use for AI. And here is where I think most people, I am concerned that they're going to get themselves into trouble. So usually what I see is people who are using AI a lot, they might be doing it in an area they don't already have an expertise in. And so they are very susceptible to misinformation. So if you're someone who uses AI and trusts it quite a bit, I would challenge you before you go too much further asking it for deep feedback is to ask it some questions about a thing you're already a deep expert on and see how many areas it gets wrong. Because if you don't know a lot about a new topic, whatever someone says, you can assume it's the truth. But if you were talking to your friends around the campfire and they gave you feedback and advice, you might be skeptical of that. But because it's AI and technology and we're living in the future and it knows everything because all the internet's available to it, we sort of take it as a higher level of authority than maybe we should actually be granting it as for expert advice. So again, if you are using it for that, I would say to double check your sources and start by saying, what am I already an expert on? And do I agree with its feedback on that? And if not, why should I believe it on areas that I'm not an expert on? Some examples, I've seen people that have fed in like house valuations for real estate into AI and gotten an opinion back that has been not in line with what on the ground experts believe. I've seen numerous other situations where AI has fed back information that has not been helpful in a real world scenario. And one of the key reasons is that they've done studies that in general, AI tends to agree with the user 50% more often than their core friend group would. And that even includes if the person is doing something unsavory, like cheating a business partner, the AI will still encourage that behavior 50% of the time, which is significant. And this is not unknown. I think many users think that they can work around that. But if you ask the AI a question, usually the way you ask it has a slight bias. So should I consider cutting back on the marketing spend on X is the question that you put into it. Within that question is the idea that you think you maybe should already, so AI is more likely to agree. If you were to pose it instead as should I increase the marketing spend on X, it's more likely to agree with you on that. So there's a bit of a compromised, non-reliable source that can come into play, which I think people are somewhat aware of, but I just wanted to bring to the forefront overall. The final part that has me slightly concerned is that it is really useful to use AI to jump forward in a project. If you're crafting an email, you can use that to get the rough draft down, but the chance of error, it's not error proof right now, and it misses the human touch. So going in and toning it up, you had the initial skeleton outline to start with, you're able to fill out the rest, that's great. But if you're trying to use it to go all the way from something from scratch, it can have its own problems. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I worry about the new generation coming up. If someone wants to be an author and write a book, they could use AI and have AI put together a book fairly quickly. If they were to do it the old way and spend 10,000 hours of writing stuff that's not very good, at the end of a few years, they might have written a book that's not great. But AI could maybe have them put together a book that's also maybe not great in a month or 2 months. And so it's hard to say, why would that person ever spend the years to write their bad book when AI could write their bad book in just a month or two? And because of that, it's unlikely they will invest the time to build those foundational skills over time. If someone has put in those years of writing a book and writing their first bad book, well, then now their next better book comes out in a year. Their next better book comes out in 6 months. A great book comes out a year after that. Then they can write a great book every single year potentially because they've built those foundational skills. So, one of the concerns is that relying on AI can cause you to miss out on building foundational skills. And I've found that skills tend to compound one on top of the other. So, for example, if you're using it to analyze your business finances, but you don't internally understand and know what your finances mean, should be for your business, now, whenever you're looking at marketing ROI ad spend, you're dependent on the information it has on the financial side of things because that skill is missing. And now, when you look at the marketing spend and you're trying to think about sales conversions, you're relying again on those foundational pieces. So my concern is that you can become reliant on this tool and miss building those skills that allow you to actually go further and stack taller. So it builds a quick tower, but the foundation isn't as sturdy, and now you're built in and reliant on it. So that's my deepest concern. But there are many times where just, hey, let's shortcut to the end here and get this done. This isn't a skill I need. This is a one-time off thing. Let me put this together and move on. That's a great chance to let it jump you forward. So I wanted to give the big picture. My conclusion, my big takeaway I hope that you have from this video is, one, to recognize if you're a business that should be thinking about the cutting edge or the dull edge of technology. Two is that you don't feel pressure to jump into this AI bandwagon just because other people are. And three, that you start to see that there are some practical applications for AI that maybe are a fit for your business. So it's kind of some nuanced ideas here, but I don't believe in the everyone should be on it or nobody should. I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the considerations as you're moving forward, making decisions in your business. I'm sure this is ever changing, so use your best judgment, but don't feel pressure or like you're behind because you're not. Let that go and have a great rest of your day.